Hello friends, today I'm going to solve LeetCode problem number 2256, minimum average difference. In this problem we are given an array nums of length n and we need to return an index which has minimum average difference. So what is average difference? Basically it is the absolute difference between the average of first I plus 1 elements and the average of last n minus I elements. It's an absolute difference and it's rounded down to the nearest integer values. Both averages are rounded down. So let me just show you in this example like what actually is the average difference and how could we calculate that. So if in case we are looking for the average difference at index I equals to 3, so which is index I equals to 3, so this is at index 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, so this is 9 is at index 3, right? So our index is here. Now what we need to find is average difference, right? Average difference of the index I is absolute difference between the average of first I plus 1 elements. So what's the first I plus 1 elements? I is equals to 3, which means I plus 1 is equals to 4. So first 4 elements, so these are the first 4 elements, right? So we need to find the average of these first 4 elements. So the average of first 4 elements is equals to 2 plus 5 plus 3 plus 9, all divided by the total number of elements, right? And the next thing is that we need to also find the average of last n minus I minus 1 elements. So basically n minus I minus 1 elements means we are eliminating all the first I plus 1 elements from our array of length n. So basically we are only looking for the average of these two elements. So the average of next average is, let's write this as average 1 and average 2. So it is equals to here 5 plus 3 divided by 2. And one more thing to keep in mind is that both averages, they are rounded down. So basically we take the floor value, so the total value here is equals to 19 by 4, which is equals to 4 point something. So we are taking the rounded value, which is equals to 4, and here it's also equals to 4. Now the average difference is the difference between these two average values. So our difference will be equals to 4 minus 4, which is equals to 0, and these are the absolute values, absolute difference. So we need to find the absolute difference. So far you understand the problem now. And one more thing here is that we need to return the index of the minimum average. So basically we need to find the average difference or at each index, and then find the minimum average minimum of those and return the index of the element. So since we need to find the average at each point, what we are going to do is, let me just talk you over the code. That would be much easier. So to find the average, two averages, we need two sums, right? So let me have sum 1 for average 1 and then sum 2 for average 2. Initially both of them are 0. Now let I equals to 0, I is less than nums length I plus plus, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the total of all the elements in the array. So I'm gonna add all the values of our nums element to my sum 2. So now what happens is the total number of elements in my sum 2 is equals to the length of the array, right? And my n1 which is the total number of elements at sum 1 is equals to 0. So now this is the sums and the number of elements in each of these sum. Now we need to find the average for each of the index, so average difference for each of the index. So for let I equals to 0, I is less than nums length I plus plus, and what are we going to do is we need to find the average, right? So before that, what we need is we need the values of sum 1 and sum 2. So sum 1, okay, sorry, I just wrote over this. Sum 1 will be, so we will always add. So what I'm doing is I'm adding some this nums 1 to my sum 1, so my sum 1 has one element, and then I'm subtracting the same element from sum 2. So my n1, the number of elements in n1 sum 1 increases and the number of elements in sum 2 decreases. So my sum 1 is this one element and my sum 2 is all these elements. So that is I am for doing that for index I equals to 0. So the average average difference at index I equals to 0 will be average difference equals to math absolute value of, so I'm going to use percent sum 1 divided by n1 minus percent sum 2 divided by n2. So this will give me the absolute difference at each of the index. So right now first will be my I equals to 0, which is this value, and then this whole value, right? And the next iteration my I will be equals to 1. So initially my sum 1 was equals to this value. Now I'm adding this to my sum 1, and then I'm subtracting 5 from my sum 2. So my sum 2 is these 4 elements and my sum 1 is these 2 elements, and that then I'll calculate the average and so on. So when the index is equals to 5 here, when I reach this index, then my sum 1 is the sum of all of the elements here, right? And my sum 2 is equals to 0 at that point, and at that point my n2 also becomes equals to 0. And when you look at this division operation here, well, n2 here becomes 0, right? And division by 0 is a math error. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use a ternary operator or operation n2 or 1. So this will return me, if n2 is greater than 0, it will return me the value of n2. If n2 is equals to 0, so it will give me a value 1. So I'm just like to eliminate the division by 0. And then we need the minimum value, right? So if okay, so we also need the variable mean difference equals to, so initially it is assigned to infinity. So if the mean difference is greater than absolute difference, because we need the mean to be less, so I'm just gonna assign the value of absolute difference, and then what we need to return is the index. So we need to keep our result will be equals to the index. So my result will be equals to the index I, because at that point the absolute value was the minimum so far. So I assign the index of the minimum value to my result, and at the end I'm gonna return the result here. So I guess everything looks fine. Let's run our code and see. Great, all the test cases have passed. I have added 2 more test cases here just to see if we have only one all the values are 0 except the last one, and the test case where all the values are equals to 0. So let's submit the code. And talking about a time complexity, I'm looking for here in this case, in this for loop, we are iterating over all the elements of the array, right? And also here we are looping over all the elements of the array. So basically the time complexity here is big O of n, and the space complexity is constant because we are not using any space that depends on the length of the array. So yeah,